All right, everybody, welcome into the post-game show. Altitude Sports Radio, all digital platforms, twitch.tv/AltitudeSR, at AltitudeSR on Twitter, or our YouTube page, Altitude Sports Radio. Please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are posting daily content on our YouTube page now, so make sure to check out our YouTube page, Altitude Sports Radio. Follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, as we're posting these shows on there and tons of content from our shows throughout the day. So welcome to In the Paint on Altitude Sports Radio. As always, feel free to leave me your comments in the comments section. And we're going to kind of do a state of the Nuggets tonight because they're at the All-Star break, okay? The dog days of the NBA season are officially over, and it is now charging towards the playoffs for your Denver Nuggets. And what a great way to head into the All-Star break for the Nuggets. They are on an 8-game win streak as they head in for their week off. Nikola Jokic will be going to San Francisco as a 5th consecutive year as an All-Star starter. Julian Strawther got announced today that he will be in the Rising Stars game. And really cool, Scott mentioned this on the broadcast. I didn't know this. The winner of the Rising Stars game will actually play one of the NBA All-Star teams on Sunday. So that's really cool. It's good for the league to switch up what is a just pathetic excuse for a basketball game in the regular All-Star game. So this is something I've been advocating for years now, that they need to change this. And real quick, before we get into the game tonight, where Jamal Murray just went off, a career-high 55 points from Jamal. Obviously was watching the Nuggets game, but I had on my laptop the Four Nations face-off started tonight. That is the NHL's version of their All-Star game this year. And I got to tell you, it was phenomenal. These guys were playing hard. So I would love to see the NBA All-Star game go to the type of format that the NHL went to. And it was a rousing success tonight. Excellent game. It went to overtime. Mitch Marner gets the overtime winner. Nathan McKinnon actually had the first goal for Team Canada. I believe the United States and Finland play tomorrow. So this is something that I really hope the NBA has kept an eye on, because this is the way to do it. We've been talking for years and years and years. How do you fix the All-Star game? This is something Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, has been tinkering with and trying to find ways to make these guys care. Well, turns out, at least in hockey, and I would imagine it would be similar in basketball, if you're playing for your country, these guys care. They just do. Okay, so that was really cool to see. I think that's something that the NBA should really look into trying to do when it comes to the NBA All-Star game. But they are switching it up a little bit. Well, like I said, they're kind of doing more of a round-robin tournament, so we'll see if these guys still don't try hard or care at all, but who knows. But with the Nuggets, we're at the All-Star break, okay? I've said on the show before, the dog days of the NBA season are pretty much January 1st up until the last game of the All-Star break. So that stretch of the season is now over, and the Nuggets are playing the best basketball they've played all season long. They're now 36-19 on the year. So what is the state of the Nuggets right now? Going back to, early on this season, let's be honest, it was a rough start for the Nuggets, okay? Jamal Murray came into this season out of shape. He was dealing with plantar fascia. He had said that about a month or so ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. And you could tell. You could tell he was out of shape. You could tell he was dealing with nagging injuries. He didn't look like the Jamal Murray that everybody's accustomed to seeing by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it was to the point where, you were sitting there going, oh, boy, did the Nuggets make a mistake in extending him over the offseason? That could be a big mistake. But the way he's playing now, it's like he's back. He's worked his way back in shape. He's obviously got the knee stuff that he's kind of been managing throughout the course of the season. I was surprised he played tonight, honestly, because I said that, if it were me, I would just sit him until post All-Star break. But he was feeling good enough to play, and obviously, good thing he did, because the Nuggets don't win this game tonight without Jamal Murray. I mean, he was phenomenal. But the beginning of the year, they get off first 10 games. They're actually 7-3. Okay, not too bad. And then they go through a pretty rough stretch to the point where on Saturday, December 7th, if you remember that game, it was at Washington, the worst team in the NBA. The Nuggets lose that game 122-113, and they go. Nikola Jokic, by the way, that he scored 56 points in that game. You forget about that. They went to 11-10 on the year. This is the portion of the season I'm talking about where it really looked gloomy for the Denver Nuggets to start the season. I mean, Nikola Jokic has been fantastic all year, but they were still trying to figure out, did they have something in Russell Westbrook, one of their big offseason additions? Did they have something in Dario Saric? Well, we figured that out. He actually did end up playing a little bit tonight with Jokic, which I thought was interesting. Russ has been fantastic. And obviously he's been out for the last couple of weeks, but he should be back post All-Star break. Dario Saric, it's over. I mean, he's out of the rotation for the most part. He was playing tonight because MPJ was out again. Aaron Gordon was out again. Like, it was a smart move by the Nuggets to do that, by the way, for tonight. But we'll get into that in a bit. So they're at a point where they're 11-10 after just a devastating loss to the Wizards. I mean, and this was the point in the year where, you're well into the season. You're over a month into the season, and it just did not look anything like a championship contender. So really rough start to the year for the Nuggets, considering where this team should be, which is in championship contention. So as we move along in the season, they kind of seesaw back and forth. They lose to Phoenix on Christmas. They give up 149 points at home on December 27th against the Cavs, if you remember that game. Now, they did score 135, but they give up 149 to the Cavs. The defense is really struggling at this point in the year. It was just sort of a kind of grind it out part of the year for the Nuggets. And it really was like, it almost felt like they were coming to a fork in the road of like, okay, what is this year's Denver Nuggets basketball team going to be? Who is this team that we're watching this year? And then they start to get Jamal Murray rolling. He starts to get in shape. He's starting to look like he's healthier. And mind you, in this stretch I'm talking about, Aaron Gordon's missing a majority of these games with his calf injury that he was also out again tonight for. I believe it's just management. I don't think there was any like sort of setback or anything like that. But, we're getting to a point in the year where you're starting to see Jamal Murray really round into form. And I've talked about this before, but Jamal Murray is a notoriously slow starter. I mean, if you remember his first year in the NBA, he missed his first like 26, 27, 28 shots, something like that. So he's always had a propensity to do this, starting off season slow. But the difference this year was, well, a couple of things. It was the poor ending against the Timberwolves in the playoffs last year, where Jamal just didn't look right. And then they had the Olympics this summer, okay? Jamal's playing for Team Canada. He looks even worse. I mean, he looked terrible in the Olympics for Team Canada. And then you start the season and he looks just as bad. So it's like, that was a major concern. But like I said, he starts to get it rolling. And with that, the Nuggets start to get it rolling. And it really does go to show everybody out there just how important Jamal Murray is to this basketball team. I mean, if the Nuggets get this Jamal Murray that we've seen over the last couple of months, they are absolutely one of the favorites to win the championship again this year. I mean, there's no question about it. And that's, factoring in Michael Porter Jr., he's having a career year. Can Aaron Gordon stay healthy? Can Russell Westbrook continue to be that sort of spark plug player that's either starting or coming off the bench? That's going to be another interesting decision for Michael Malone. What's he going to do with Russ when he comes back? But with the resurgence of Jamal Murray, the Nuggets really started to take off. And in January, they were able to string a ton of wins together to the point where, they won 8 of 9 in a stretch in January. Then they have 3 losses in a row at the end of last month. That was the start of the 5-game East Coast road trip at Minnesota, at Chicago, and at New York. They lose all 3 of those games. Then the winning streak starts. I mean, you eke out a victory over the 76ers. You eke out a victory over the Charlotte Hornets, a bad Charlotte Hornets team, and a bad 76ers team, too, without Joel Embiid. And then the 8-game win streak really gets rolling. You had the back-to-back home games against the New Orleans Pelicans. The Nuggets dominated both of those games. Orlando, they crushed them. Go to Phoenix, easy W for them. And then they get the back-to-back home wins to close out the pre-All-Star portion of the schedule to get their 8th straight win, and they are now sitting at 36-19 on the year. So for as bad as the season started, and this wasn't like the first couple of weeks of the season, this was the first couple of months of the season where you're sitting there, and I was sitting there going, this team just does not look right. But the team we saw tonight, and the team we've seen over the last 8 games, this is what the Nuggets of 2023 looked like. And it's really starting to round into form. And by the way, Christian Braun, I've talked about him ad nauseum this year because he's been so impressive in his 3rd year. He should be getting more consideration for most improved player. He's nearly doubled his scoring average from last season. Now, granted, he's playing more minutes. Obviously, he's been starting the majority of the year. So I totally get that. But you can just see there is a different confidence level in Christian Braun's game. He has been unbelievable in the fast break. He's one of the league leaders in fast break points. He's one of the league leaders in points in the paint as a guard. So that's really cool to see, too. He clearly has a great chemistry with Nikola Jokic. Honestly, everybody on this team seems to have great chemistry with Nikola Jokic. I just think that's how damn special Joker really is. Look at Russell Westbrook. That took 1 game, and those two were simpatico in the 2-man game, and that was cool to see. And that's another thing that I think really helped the Nuggets weather the storm early on in the season was the fact that they found the 2-man game between Russ and Nikola Jokic so early, and it clicked so fast that when Jamal was struggling, the 2-man game, the best 2-man game on the Nuggets for the first 2 months of the season, no question, was Nikola Jokic and Russell Westbrook. So that really helped. And then Jamal starts to get in shape, starts to get a little bit healthier, and the 2-man game between he and Nikola Jokic is now back. In fact, I heard Stephen A. We played the clips on our shows today talking about, is LeBron and Luka now the scariest duo in the Western Conference? Well, first of all, give them a couple of weeks so we can at least see what it looks like, okay? And it's going to take some time for that to get going, in my opinion. But if you were to tell me, and Stephen A. said it's Jokic and Murray, and it is. But if you were to ask me that question in December or late November, what's the scariest duo in the Western Conference? I don't know what my specific answer would have been, but it damn sure wouldn't have been Jokic and Murray at that point. Now, that's obviously to no fault of Nikola Jokic, but Jamal Murray was just a shell of himself for the first 2 months of this season. So it is very encouraging to see just how well Jamal Murray has been playing in the last 2 months of the year. He has been back to Jamal. And again, tonight, just incredible performance. 20 of 36 for Jamal tonight. 7 of 15 from beyond the arc. The Nuggets took 12 3-pointer attempts as a team in Monday's game against the Portland Trail Blazers. So Jamal took 15 on his own tonight and hit 7 of them. 8 of 9 from the line. So it wasn't one of those games where he gets 20-plus points at the free throw line. He was just scoring the basketball, traditionally scoring the basketball for the most part. And ends up with 55 points tonight, a career high for Jamal Murray. I got to tell you, it just kept coming into my head during this game. Like, if the Nuggets get anything close to this version of Jamal Murray that we saw tonight, they have got to be the favorites to win the title again this year. If they have this Jamal Murray, and if Michael Porter Jr. continues to do what he's done this year. And again, this is all with the caveat that the team is healthy. And we'll see what happens after the All-Star break. But it's so cliche, and I kind of hate saying it, but it is really true in this case. The All-Star break came at a perfect time this year for the Nuggets. Now, the only downside to the All-Star break being right now, it's one of those conundrums where the team's on an 8-game winning streak. They're playing great. They're the hottest team in the NBA, and now you're off for a week. So that will be the interesting thing. How does this team get out of the gate post All-Star break? And I've talked about this before. It was last year. Joker sent a text or called a meeting or whatever it was going into the unofficial second half of the season, the post All-Star break portion of the schedule, and said, it's go time. Like, we're in this now, boys. So be curious to see if he does something like that again. I suspect that he will. And who knows? Maybe it's not Joker this year. Maybe it's Russell Westbrook. Maybe it's Aaron Gordon. Maybe it's Jamal Murray. I mean, who knows? I suspect to see a laser-focused Denver Nuggets team out of the All-Star break. And I got to tell you, that was a bad fourth quarter tonight. I mean, they only ended up losing the quarter by 5. It felt like more than that because they did start to get a little sloppy trying to get Jamal his 50, which, okay, I kind of get it. But they kind of got away from Denver Nuggets basketball when they were doing that. And that's what got Portland back into the game tonight. But it worked out. Jamal got his 50, added on 5 more after that, and they were able to get the victory. But as far as what to expect out of this team post All-Star break, so next Thursday, I believe, is the Nuggets' next game. Thursday at home against the Hornets. I mean, talk about a really good first game back to get the team rolling against the Hornets. And then on Saturday, you've got the Lakers at home as well. So really two really good games coming out of the break. The first one, obviously, good game in the sense of it's a bad team. The Nuggets can kind of get their legs back under them. And then you've got a very exciting matchup with Luka and LeBron and the LA Lakers. I said, this stretch of the schedule that they're in right now, really kind of culminating with that Lakers game, because this is a stretch of 7 of their 8 games in this stretch are all at home. And I said this is a great opportunity for the Nuggets to sort of work their way back up in the standings. Well, obviously, that's exactly what they've done. They're 1 game back of Memphis right now. And nobody's catching Oklahoma City. They're 9 games back of OKC. They're the 1 seed. Fine. I've said all year, as long as the Nuggets can get a top 4 seed, I mean, I'm totally fine with that. In fact, really, I went as far to say it's the top 6 seed. I'd rather have that and then be healthy going into the playoffs than scratch and claw their way to try and get a top 2 seed. Now, it might just work out more organically this year that they can get into the top 2. We'll see what they decide to do. But again, I'm really curious to see the approach that Michael Malone takes with his guys and player management for the remaining, whatever it is, 20-something odd games out of the All-Star break before the playoffs start. And we'll see if anything changes from last year, because he did talk about, maybe I ran my guys into the ground. That's what he said at the end of season press conference at Ball Arena with Calvin Booth and Josh Kroenke. He said, maybe I did. And you could tell that Malone was really thinking about that. So we'll see if that changes this year. I hope it does. I hope Malone learned a very valuable lesson from the end of last year's regular season to not run these guys into the ground. At this stage in the Jokic era, having a top 2 seed is nice. It's very valuable. But this is a team, in my opinion, that doesn't need to have a top 2 or even a top 3 seed in order to get out of the West. They've been almost just as good on the road this year as they have been at home, which is kind of wild. When you think about the Nuggets historically, they're a very dominant home team. But again, they got knocked out of the playoffs on their home court last year. So what is the approach going to be for Michael Malone as far as player management, minutes management, all of that kind of stuff? Is Russell Westbrook going to be back and healthy? How's the hamstring for Michael Porter Jr.? Jamal Murray's knee injury management? That's all going to play into the decision making of Michael Malone down the stretch, and we'll see what happens. But look, as for as bad as this season started, this team has played excellent basketball over the last, really, I want to say month and a half, 2 months of the season. They have been absolutely fantastic. All right, let's get to some of your comments here. My guy, Kev. Appreciate you listening, Kev, as always. 8 in a row. Yes, longest win streak of the year for the Nuggets. Pants Party, favorite name, you know that. Says, I agree that game was so interesting. I think that's when I was mentioning the Four Nations face-off. So if you missed it earlier, I was talking about I had obviously was watching the Nuggets game on the TV, but I had the Four Nations face-off game, Canada and Sweden, on my laptop, and I was sort of watching that while obviously watching the Nuggets game. That game was awesome if you missed it. And this is really this is something that I think the NBA needs to look at when it comes to totally overhauling their All-Star game. And now they're trying different things this year. They're having more of a round-robin style tournament. The winner of the Rising Stars game that Julian Strawther will be in will actually play on Sunday, one of the All-Star teams. So that's cool. I mean, at least they're changing it up a little bit. But I tell you what, I mean, the biggest problem with All-Star games is the dudes don't care and they don't try, okay? It's a fake basketball game. If you watch that hockey game tonight, the Four Nations face-off, the NHL's revamped All-Star game, if you will, those dudes were going all out. I mean, it was intense. The checking was real. The speed was real. Nathan McKinnon scored the first goal, and he's, screaming and jumping up and down and hugging Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid. So my point is, should the NBA try to emulate what the NHL did this year and make it to where it's a country-based style, tournament-style, all-star sort of weekend, or whatever you want to call it? It would be more difficult in the NBA, I would say, because you would almost have to, you couldn't just do, I mean, maybe you could, like Team Serbia, right? But are you going to do Team Slovenia? I mean, maybe. Team France. You would have to have more than 4 countries in the NBA. That would be the more difficult part, because you could do Team Canada, obviously the US, Team Mexico. I mean, all the Eastern European countries, but that would be very interesting to see. So look, I'm just saying that it looked like it worked tonight. The game was awesome. It went to overtime. Mitch Marner got the game winner, and that place was going bananas in Montreal. So will the NBA look at that and say, maybe we should try something like that? Really, really cool stuff. All right, let's see here. Kevin says, we've missed Russ. We need him back. Yeah. I mean, look, they've won 8 games in a row. So I'm not saying that Russ is not valuable to this team. He absolutely is. But they've won 8 in a row. So without Russell Westbrook, I think it goes to show that even for me, this team has a little bit more depth than I had initially thought. Jalen Pickett has really shown something. Got to give a huge shout out to Zeke Naji. I mean, I have dogged him more than anybody this year. But I commend what Zeke has done. It would have been very easy for him to just throw in the towel and feel sorry for himself and pout on the bench every game because he wasn't playing after playing early on in the season and struggling mightily. But everything I've heard from the coaches and the players, Zeke has been one of the hardest, if not the hardest worker on the team this year. And Jalen Pickett's mentioned that. We had Julian Strawther on our show a couple weeks ago. He had mentioned that as well. So, it really is just one of those things where you got to commend a guy like Zeke Naji for sticking with it and really not giving up on himself. That was excellent to see. All right, let's hear a quick soundbite here from Nuggets head coach Michael Malone. He was talking, obviously, at his post-game press conference about Jamal Murray. Let's head to Coach.
Somebody showed me a stat the other day that Nikola Jokic's stats through 3 quarters. Just through 3 quarters. No one else in the NBA has playing 4 quarters. Just think about that. I mean, and there are really good players in this league. There's one great player in my eyes. I mean, what Nikola does to be top 3 in points and rebounds and assists, top 5 in steals, the efficiency, it's just incredible. And that's why I mentioned earlier, and Ryan says it a lot of times as I'm walking out here, oh, by the way, Nikola had 40 tonight. Oh, by the way, Nikola had a triple-double in 3 quarters again. Nikola's incredible. I mean, I don't know what else to say. That guy is just incredible. And what's most rewarding about it and being around him is that he doesn't want or care to get any credit. I'm sure he's really looking forward to going to San Francisco. I think he's excited about that. But, I mean, and I know you guys all do this, but please, let's never, ever, ever take Nikola's greatness for granted. We are witnessing, history every single night. I don't take it for granted. He's incredible, and I really, really feel fortunate and blessed to have a chance to coach him for 10 years now.
All right, great stuff there from Michael Malone. Yeah, this is stuff I've talked about before. It is easy to sort of just dismiss what Nikola Jokic is doing because he is so consistent. He is so consistently great that it's just another triple-double. But, man, sometimes you really just need to take a step back and understand, how special this is. I mean, I would say the chances are extremely high that in the rest of my lifetime and the rest of everybody who's listening to the show's lifetime, we will never see a player as great as Nikola Jokic in Denver again. Now, obviously, I hope I'm wrong. And that's not to say that the Nuggets aren't going to have great players in the future post the Jokic era, but we've never seen a guy like this. The NBA has never seen a player like Nikola Jokic. And I love telling this story because I think it relates to how a lot of fans felt early on in Jokic's career and honestly how a lot of the national media felt. We had never seen a guy like Nikola Jokic, who is 7 feet tall, can't jump over a piece of paper, really just not super athletic. I mean, I think he's more athletic than it looks. But for NBA standards, not super athletic, not going to jump you out of the gym, slow, kind of just bumbles around out there, quirky, sort of unorthodox movements, unorthodox shot style. And, just speaking for me personally, I mean, it took me, I don't know, at least 3 years into Jokic's career, if not longer, for me to really understand how great this guy is. Because we've never seen anything like it. We've never seen a guy that looks that unathletic dominate so thoroughly. I mean, I remember I went to a game with my sister years ago, and I can't remember who the Nuggets were playing, but Jokic just kind of casually dropped 40 points. I mean, this had to have been 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm like, whoa, this Jokic guy's got 40 points, and he's hitting 3-pointers. That's the other part of it, It's you're having the 7-footer that can stretch the floor and go out and hit 3-pointers. Now, granted that most of the big guys in the NBA can do that now, but it really is just, it was so unique what he was doing. And just so really hard to process how good this guy is. I mean, and now it's, obvious, you can just see it clear as day. But I really do think, I know a lot of Nuggets fans got really frustrated with the national media for disrespecting Nikola Jokic over the years. And I get it. And they absolutely did. Okay. So you weren't wrong in your criticism. Now, I'm always of the opinion of like, who cares what the national media thinks? But I get it. Okay. And you want the national narrative of your guys to be positive. And you want those guys who have platforms and voices in the NBA to see what you're seeing. Right. So I totally understand that. But I'm just kind of in the mindset of like, it'll take care of itself. That's what I always said. And now look at the national media. I mean, they all agree that Nikola Jokic, without a doubt, is the best basketball player in the world. I mean, no question about it. And he will win another MVP this year. He is going to win the MVP again, in my opinion. I don't think it'll be close. Now, Shea has had an amazing season. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander of the Thunder. And the Thunder do have a much better record than the Denver Nuggets. But I don't care. I mean, one of the years Jokic won MVP, the Nuggets were a 6 seed. So he's going to win the MVP again this year. It'll be his fourth in 5 years. And quite honestly, it should be his fifth in a row. I think we all know kind of what went on in the year Embiid wanted. The talking heads on the yelling shows made it about non-basketball stuff, which really, I think, made a lot of people angry, and myself included, because it's just keep it. It should just be about the game. That's kind of where I stand on that. But it really is just. It was amazing just for me personally to sort of like look back at myself early on in the Jokic era, and I just want to like scream at myself and be like, this guy's going to be the best player on the planet. And you knew he was like, I knew he was very good. Okay. And I'll give Scott Hastings a lot of credit. And this is true. When I first started working at Altitude Sport Radio, it was I think it was like Jokic's first actual year playing with the Nuggets, because obviously he stayed in Serbia for a year after he got drafted. And Scott Hastings would always say, he's going to be the best Nugget ever. And it's like, wow. Okay. And you got to remember, back then, that was just a couple years after Carmelo Anthony left and Chauncey Billups. In that era of the Nuggets. But Scott called it early on. He's like, I'm telling you, like, this guy's going to be great. And Scott couldn't have been more right about that. But I really do think that's just a lot of fans kind of had the same sort of evolution of their fandom and knowing what they're watching when it comes to Nikola Jokic. So it's been really, really cool to see. All right, let's see here. Marion Lou says, yeah, Kendrick Perkins. I'm glad. Thank you for picking up on that. That's exactly what I was talking about. Kevin says, growing up here in Colorado and just getting into basketball, I admire Jokic. He is a great basketball player. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And, that's when I really started getting into basketball was 2003. I was 12 years old. And I remember listening to Sports Talk Radio. And it was right after the Nuggets drafted Carmelo Anthony out of Syracuse, 3rd overall in the 2003 NBA draft. One of the best draft classes ever. LeBron, D. Wade, Chris Bosh. I know I'm missing a couple others. Excellent draft class. But I remember them talking about that draft, and Carmelo Anthony specifically, obviously, saying like, wow, the Nuggets just got a superstar. I'm like, man, they were really hyping him up. So I'm like, man, I better check this guy out. And I've been a diehard NBA fan ever since then. So my point is, the beginning of the Jokic era, a lot of Nuggets fans were coming from a place where, in my opinion, at that point, we just saw the best player in Nuggets history. And I know people could make the argument for Alex English or David Thompson. I get all that. For me, it's Carmelo Anthony. At that time, it was for me. So, and then the draft comes and they draft Jusuf Nurkic and Nikola Jokic, two Eastern European dudes. You don't know how to pronounce their names. I remember like, who the hell are these guys? Like, what are they doing? Well, it turns out I was very wrong about that. Now, Jusuf Nurkic was the first round pick that year, if you remember. And obviously Nikola Jokic went in the second round, 41st overall. Malone decides to make the decision to start Nikola Jokic. And that's known as Jokmas Day here in the Mile High City. And that's really when the Jokic era kicked off. And it really is. I'm glad Malone said that, because it really is It's easy to sort of take him for granted, but you kind of got to take a step back and be like, we're probably never going to see anything like this ever again. So that was really, really cool. All right, one more thing I want to show you guys before we get out of here. Scott did a great job on the broadcast tonight. They were doing the Jokic bobblehead giveaway. He kind of like faked stealing one from a fan. It was great. But his post-game interview with Jamal was fantastic. So I want to play that for you guys here. All right, there's Scotty with Jamal. I did not get the "we can't drive" thing at the beginning, so if anybody knows what Scott's referencing there, please feel free to let me know. I can ask him tomorrow. I mean, I'll see him tomorrow. Actually, no, Scott's going to be off tomorrow. He's going on vacation for the All-Star break. But great stuff there from Jamal. And hearing him say, like, that sort of mental reset, the adversity that this team faced kind of helped them mentally reset and get to a different place. And sometimes adversity early on in seasons are the best things for a team. I go back to the year the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup in 2019, I believe that was. In January, they were dead last in the Western Conference. So they faced adversity, and you know what? That adversity made them switch their mentality, and they caught fire, and they ended up going to win a championship. So is that something that we could see here this year for the Nuggets? We shall see. My guy Andy says, does Jamal have his swagger back? I tell you what, Andy, this was the swaggiest, even if that's a word, Jamal Murray I've seen all season long, bar none. I mean, Katie mentioned this on the broadcast. Like, he's got a different look in his eye tonight, and he really did. And what was one of my favorite things about Jamal's performance tonight was it really did look like Jamal was just having fun playing basketball tonight. And there's been a lot of games this year where it's looked like work. It's looked like a job. So it was really cool to see Jamal have as much fun as he did tonight in the Nuggets victory over the Portland Trail Blazers. So absolutely fantastic stuff. All right. That's going to do it for the post-game show tonight, everybody. Really appreciate you listening. Again, the Nuggets go into the All-Star break on an 8-game win streak. Fantastic stuff. They're 36-19 on the year. I'm telling you, they are in prime position to get a top 2 seed because I like what Memphis is doing. I mean, Jamal Morant's a stud. They've got some really, really good young talent on that team. I just don't think they're ready. I don't think they're ready to be that team yet. Same with the Houston Rockets, who are a game and a half behind the Nuggets. And then you got the Lakers in the 5 seed. Like, who knows what – the Lakers really are just kind of the wild card in the West now with Luka and LeBron. So that's going to be really fun to see, too. That's something I'm looking forward to post-All-Star break. The Nuggets' second game out of the All-Star break will be at Ball Arena on Saturday against the LA Lakers. So that'll be really kind of cool to see how that's working for the Lakers. But great stuff. Excellent win tonight. Career high, 55 points for Jamal Murray. And the Nuggets are the hottest team in the NBA. Nobody has as long of a win streak right now in the NBA as the Denver Nuggets. The Thunder are right behind them at 7 in a row, but the Nuggets are the hottest team in the NBA. So we'll be off for a week. Really appreciate everybody listening. And we'll be back coming up next Thursday, February 20th, for another post-game show when the Charlotte Hornets come to town to take on the Nuggets. But that's it for the post-game show tonight, everybody. Stay warm, stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week.